Welcome back to another episode of the Seafarer Social Podcast. This is episode 18, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that I'm with one of my favorite seafarer influencers on social media, frankly. This is Captain Sam. Captain Sam has been a captain for over 22 years. He first came to my notice in a video that went viral with another fantastic Indian seafarer influencer, Mr. Praneet Mehta, aka Merchant Navy Decoded. Fantastic YouTube channel, and Praneet told me if you can get the chance, speak with Captain Sam. He is a really, really charismatic guy. More importantly, a fantastic captain. So I'm hugely honoured to have this opportunity to speak to you, Captain Sam. And firstly, how are you?
I'm very good. Thanks a lot, Carl. You honor me and you flatter me. Just a regular guy now, trying to stay young, along with you guys.
But I think you show something quite different, I'd say, to maybe some of the other captains I've seen online, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into that later on. But firstly, I want to understand a little bit about your maritime journey. So you've been a ship captain for over 22 years.
Yeah.
That is just unbelievable. You know, most captains that I've come across, they tend to do maybe 5 to 10 years, and then they transfer their skills and they go shore based. You've stuck at it. You've been at sea for how
I
many years?
haven't really stuck at it, Carl. I've
Okay,
quit 3 times and then gone back to sailing.
I see. Okay,
Okay, the first time I quit was for a teaching job, and I did enjoy teaching a lot, but not that much money and too early in life. I went back to sailing. Then I quit to take up a shore job as a maritime superintendent in Jacksonville, Florida. I did that till I figured out that I'm not designed to sit in a chair. I went back to sailing after that. The third time I quit was when I started. I started a workshop of my own. I was building and driving race cars.
wow. Okay, that's
I
pretty
did
different.
that for 3 years, and then the motorsport industry in India went downwards. This was after the F1 pulled out of India, and then I went back to sailing. I had a lot of fun in those 3 years. Didn't make a lot of money, but made a big name and stuff in the racing circles.
Nice, good for you. So, how many years have you been at sea then? 22 years as a captain, but how many years did it take you to become a
I
captain?
started in '89, so that makes about 35 years now.
Wow, 35 years. And let's take it back to the beginning. So, what inspired you originally to pursue the career of seafaring?
Truthfully speaking, I'd never considered it until the day before I actually joined. I
Wow.
was preparing for my engineering entrances and stuff like that. I was all set to be an engineer. And then I visited a cousin of mine who was applying for a cadet's position in one of the companies. And overnight, I came to know about sea life, a life of adventure, a life for real men, the tough life, and a lot of money, and a chance to see the world. And that actually changed my mindset. I said, this is something that I would really, really like to do. So I went along with him the next day, asked if they were taking walk in interviews, and they were. So I went and gave my test and I got in.
Nice. And what was your first contract? Who did you work with?
I worked with Barber Ship Management, which is now Williamson, and my first ever contract was on a car carrier.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
and actually, funny story because I come from a my home city is 1,800 kilometers from the sea. Okay, so I never really had a maritime exposure before I did my training. When I did my training, we saw all conventional kind of ships. So when I actually reached my first vessel, the taxi dropped me off at the gangway. That time we did not have a ramp. It was a first generation car carrier, so there were car ladders that was stored on deck, and you use a crane to place them broadside midships. Okay, I was standing right amidships and watching this huge wall, and I was looking back and forth trying to figure out what the fuck is forward and what's aft. That was actually my first view of my first ship. I actually could not figure out forward and aft.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
So the pathway to becoming a captain, would you say that it was something that happened relatively quickly, or was it something that really took a lot of time?
Now, touchwood, for me, it was relatively quickly. I gave in my exams pretty much on time, soon as I finished time for the exams, which was a smart thing to do and which I recommend all seafarers to do. Because unless you're qualified, you can't expect to be promoted. And I got through all my exams in India in the first attempt, which is also pretty good. And then it was a matter of waiting to get in line, develop seniority, and get in line to be master. I was lucky; I got to be chief mate really quickly, but then I got stuck in chief mate for the longest time. In a way that helped me prepare myself mentally for when I get my command. I already had a fairly good grip on what would be expected out of me.
Sure. So from an academic perspective, you prioritized your studies. Did you ever
Yes,
have
I did.
like a did you ever have like a role model or somebody another captain who said to you, Sam, you could do this if you really try. I could see you fitting into this role very easily.
Yes, this was a captain on my second ship actually, Captain Rajiv Sharma. He's retired now. He's the director with CSL Canada currently, semi-retired. Okay, but he's been a role model. He was captain before the age of 30, and I said that's something I gotta do.
Nice. That's very impressive. I think one of the other things that I really feel inspired when I watch your content is I love your leadership style. You're very much you think in such a way which I think is very stoic, and I also really like the fact that you prioritize things like mental health, fitness, these kinds of things, and you really bestow this on your audience. Where did you develop this leadership style?
I think it's a culmination of all life experiences. Strongly believed you have something to learn from everyone that you come across, irrespective of age, rank, or whatever. And sometimes you even learn stuff what you should not do.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's a both ways, and I think I've picked it up along the way. It's a culmination of all the life experiences that I've had with a lot of people. I've seen what works, what doesn't, and it's just me the way it's come out. And it happens with everyone. I don't think I'm unique in that way. It's just everybody charts their own course, and everybody develops a personality over their life experiences. So it's that's how it turned out. I've always been a
Yeah.
voracious reader. I've like used to read whatever I could get my hands on, and I do love interacting with people. So both things I think go a long way in developing a more rounded personality or something of that sort.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What about the fitness side of things? This is something that you really promote in your videos, and I find it extremely impressive. For me, I'm somebody that massively enjoys weightlifting, and I know that you share the same passion. And I thought it was just so cool when you do these videos of you doing stuff like deadlifts on board. Is this something that you try and encourage the rest of the crew to take on as well?
Not as much as encourage or push, but rather lead by example.
Sure.
I do advertise that my goal in life is to die young as late as possible. Okay, and when particularly the younger guys, they look at somebody twice their age doing the stuff that I do, they do feel inspired and they like join in by themselves. So that's more of what I would like is set an example and show the benefits.
100%. I think one of the things I wanted to ask you regarding this is that a lot of people say once you become a captain, um, there's obviously perks that come with that, and one of those perks sometimes can be a little bit more freedom, perhaps. Do you think that for say maybe perhaps someone who's a rating or whatever, do you think that they can still fit in the time to put their physical health first on every voyage?
Yes, now more so than before. Previously, working hours were not regulated. Now they're very strictly regulated, and everybody does have time to themselves. So, if you want to, yes, I believe everybody can find time. It's a matter of discipline. If, like, you set your mind to it, this is what I'm going to do, you end up doing it.
I totally agree. I think that and it's easy for me to say that being shore based. but I run a company. I'm a family guy. I have a daughter, and all these kind of things. And regardless of what's going on, even if I'm traveling, I always try and find that 1 hour where I can just do something, even if I just hit the floor and do some push-ups and stuff like that. I think that feeling you get after pushing yourself physically is it's just incomparable,
Once you make a habit out of it, then when you don't do it, you feel something's missing from your life.
Totally agree. You feel kind of gross. Like, what have I? You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
need to be active.
exactly. Also, since I'm a foodie, I got to justify my food.
Well, that's interesting. Actually, I'm curious to know a little bit more about the food situation on board. How does that sort of coincide with weight training and stuff like that? Are you requesting like high volumes of protein and stuff like that, or is it still just to take whatever you get?
Not really, in the sense that I'm on maintenance mode. I'm not trying to build stuff and stuff like that. But
Yeah, sure.
the food on board is pretty nutritious as it is, and you can get whatever you want. There used to be an old joke in companies that when a new master joins the company, in his first briefing, he's told that in one tenure, you can sack three guys. If you sack more than three guys, then there's something wrong with you. But the chief cook is never counted. You can sack as many cooks as you want. Make sure the guys eat well.
Yeah, for sure. I bet. Okay, so let's talk about Instagram. I've watched what you've done over the last couple of months on Instagram. I know from your side, perhaps you might approach this like I wasn't expecting this, or this came out of nowhere. But your engagement on Instagram has is really picked up. I'd say over the last couple of months, you're now over 100,000 followers on Instagram. You're one of the most followed seafarers, especially in India, and this kind of blew up quite quickly for you from my perspective anyway. What sort of motivated you to start sharing your maritime life on social media, and how has your content evolved over time?
Okay. So when I first started with Instagram was when I took up photography as a hobby for some time. So I would take photographs of sunrise, sunsets, good sights I saw, short videos, and food. A lot of food if you see my initial feed. Okay. And so my camera memory used to keep getting full. So I decided to start posting on Instagram and deleting from my phone, so to say, save space. I
Nice.
started like that. And then I started with a couple of short videos and stuff like that. And it occurred to me, if I'm making short videos, why not use these videos to show my experiences or reenact something that I've had and which has made a difference in my life, and it would help others or be of benefit to others. So I started thinking in those terms. So usually I have four verticals. Okay, I make education, humor, motivation, and fitness. My fitness content actually does not run; it gets the least amount of views. But even humor, I try to put a message behind it. So if there is something which I want to put across, I try to put it across in a funny way, but there's an underlying message to most of the videos. So I started out like that, and it continued for about a year and a half with not really much response. Then all of a sudden, three of my videos went viral together. Then it just kind of blew up from there.
How viral is viral? How many views did those videos get?
Million plus.
Wow.
And actually, it's three that went together. One was a maneuvering video, one was a video of a safety briefing, and one was the Independence Day celebrations on board. And all three pretty much took off together, and it just blew up from there. So once it did start growing up, then I kind of stopped posting about food because I saw that the food posts were doing really bad. So that is one change that I've made. I refuse to stop the fitness content. Every third post of mine is fitness because that is just me. I'm
Yeah,
not
sure.
me without that part of it. Okay. And I actually do not put in as much effort as a lot of other guys do. There are so many guys doing such good job. They have brilliant editing, brilliant effects. The way they put across the story is actually very good. They manage to pack a lot in within that 30 seconds or 1 minute. And they have like, so actually it surprises me to see the response that I've got, because I have not put in that kind of effort into my videos. I mean, most of my videos is what you see is what you get, one take and wrap. It's all
Well, I
like,
like that. I like that. I think it offers a level of authenticity. Actually, um, I think that your videos are really, really, really smart. But I think the main reason why people buy into your videos is mainly for your character. Because of that, I'm interested in knowing more about your audience. So, your audience is over 100,000 followers, but typically those who engage with you are they predominantly seafarers? Are they predominantly Indian seafarers? Who is your audience built by?
it's seafarers, mostly young seafarers and seafarers' families.
Interesting.
But bulk of my audience is young seafarers worldwide.
Nice, amazing, and I can totally see why, because I think when they listen to your content, it gives them inspiration, and they feel like they speak with somebody that can relate to them and understands their situation. What I also notice about your content as well, Captain Sam, is I mean you're working in a seafaring is one of the hardest jobs in the world, one of the most unique jobs in the world. I speaking to somebody just the other day, and I was saying, nobody on planet Earth can relate to a seafarer, because I don't believe there's any job out there that comes close in similarity. You could probably compare some similarities to the military, I guess, but it's an extremely unique situation.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that one of the things I've also observed is that seafarers, they if you look at a seafarer's social media, their primary source of inspiration is other seafarers, and I think that's because they can't find relations to other people with different positions. They must observe what other seafarers are doing, and if you're a captain, you speak even more volume. But I think it puts you in a really, really powerful position to speak to that audience. But really interesting that you said that it's seafarers predominantly from around the world. Let's talk a little bit about India. Whereabouts in India are you based?
I am in a suburb of New Delhi called Noida, and
Nice.
I was born and brought up in Delhi. Then I moved here about 20 years back.
Okay, beautiful. And you have a son, right? Or you
I
have
have
numerous
one son,
sons?
yes.
One son. Okay. Yeah, and I see that he gets in your videos a lot as well, which I think is really cool. And you said that he is not a seafarer, in fact, right?
Yes, he's not a seafarer. That decision was taken about 7, 8 years ago that he's not going to go out to sea. He was a sportsman and a national level sportsman, good one. And sports and science cannot go together. So if
Yeah,
you've got to
sure.
study science, you cannot give that kind of time to sport. So it
Sure,
was
that makes
decided
sense.
that this is something he will never do.
Nice. Good for him. Um, so, in terms of India as a whole, though, when it comes to the seafaring community, I recently spoke with Praneet and Karen Veer, and one of the things we observed, Karen Veer is a very young guy himself, but one of the things we observed is that we live in a world now where, frankly, it's never been easier to make money on your laptop. You can literally be anywhere. So all of a sudden, when I speak to crewing agencies, etc., I explain to them, when you're trying to hire new seafarers nowadays, you're not competing against other roles. You're actually competing against being able to fly to Bali and sit on a beach and make $1,500 a month doing some SEO and editing. That is actually the world we live in now, right?
Actually,
So when it comes to the Indian seafarer, especially when they say that younger people nowadays, and I'm included in this, younger people nowadays are lazier, less inspired. Um, they want as much as they can for the least amount of commitment, etc., etc. How do you think, as a country, India can make seafaring attractive to the younger generation?
okay, you see, India is a country of very, very large disparity, uh, as in the income rates as well as the living standards and stuff like that. So the aspiring seafarers, they're coming from tier two and tier three cities, not from the metros any longer. Now, these are the guys who've not had the exposure, who have the hunger to go around see the world, and they have the will to do what it takes. So these are the guys who are doing really, really well. They're coming from small cities. They have that hunger in their belly. They have the will to actually work for it. And a lot of them do very, very well.
Where's the number one like seafaring city or region in India where the predominant amount of seafarers come from?
The predominantly it'll still be Mumbai and around.
Okay.
Okay, that's predominantly it. But you find a lot of seafarers coming in from North India now, from the hills and stuff, which was never the case even 7, 8 years ago. Okay, there were very few seafarers in the mountains up north, the Himalayas. Now, from the foothills and stuff, you have a lot of seafarers coming in from North India. Mostly they used to come from the coastal belt, but now, with awareness, it's penetrated pretty far inland.
Interesting. Okay. And another thing that I observe is quite interesting as well is, sadly, obviously, there's lots of conflict happening in Ukraine and Russia, and this has affected the seafarer supply from that area naturally, and those areas were also known for producing a lot of chief engineers and officers. The Indian Seafarer brand is a very strong brand. I speak to crewing agencies. They're predominantly known for being a little bit more expensive, typically. And I know that one of the universities you have in India, I can't recall the name, has the highest amount of chief engineers produced in the world. I think it's the University of India. Please forgive.
It's
What?
LBS CAMSA or DMET, Directorate
That's
of
it.
Marine Engineering Technology.
Yeah, they've produced more chief engineers than any school in the world, is
Yes,
what I've
it is.
heard.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, and the demand for Indian seafarers being higher now because the supply of officers is much less. What do you think is the future for India when it comes to seafaring supply?
Uh, okay. Now, the number of container ships has got to increase. Okay, because the ships are going slower and slower for emission standards. So overall, you're going to have a lot more seafarers coming out to sea from the world over, and I think a large proportion of that will be from India because population-wise, we are there. Okay, and another advantage that India has is English. We do have. I mean, the Brits left us with a legacy of English, so a large population can at least speak and understand the language in a rudimentary form, and to polish that is not so difficult. So that is one advantage that Indian seafarers do have the world over, the English language advantage. The second advantage is the willing to work for it. They have the hunger and they're not afraid of the competition. But then you find all sorts everywhere. You find really good to the really bad. So you got to pick and choose.
Sure, it makes sense, but that's
Yeah.
the case with every country. That's
Yeah,
the
but
case with
then
every
India,
country.
you have a wider choice. You can't pick the good ones.
Oh yeah. Do you think there's a chance that India could ever overstep China and the Philippines for being the highest volume of seafarers from one nationality?
There are not so many Chinese seafarers
Yeah,
in commercial ships, actually, because the a seafaring job in China does not pay that much more as compared to a land job. So, contrary to popular belief, there are not so many Chinese seafarers out at sea. China had a very ambitious plan to put out 5,000 English speaking officers out to sea every year. It never worked out.
really
A large proportion of the Chinese do not want to go out to sea.
interesting. Because I read statistics somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it quoted that it was Philippines first, followed by China, followed by India. Would you beg to differ then? Would you say it's Philippines, India?
Okay, let's say, let me put it this way. Most of the Chinese seafarers, they're on Chinese fishing vessels.
Sure.
Okay, that's where they make up the numbers. On commercial freighters, you do not have that many Chinese.
Okay, so what about overstepping the Filipinos? Do you think that's something that could happen in the future?
Philippines is a very strong seafaring nation by history. So,
And what do you think about technology innovation? People are talking about AI. Is it going to take over? Is self navigation ships going to take over the jobs of seafarers? What's your opinion on this?
it is an eventuality. Shipping has changed since the time I've joined till now. Actually, When I was in school, Carl, I used to think that what's left to discover or invent? Everything's already been discovered. But in our lifetimes, we've seen more technological advancements than since the beginning of mankind. Actually, so looking at this, there is only one way to go, and which is forward. So the job has changed its profile and will continue to monitor. I mean, it will continue to alter. We are going to have a new job profile, but we're going to have the same jobs. Maybe, okay, what's the difference between a sailor from 30 years ago and a sailor from now? The sailor 30 years ago used to be personality driven. There was a lot more physical aspect to sailing. You were supposed to be able to splice wires and ropes and do heavy hauling and stuff like that. Now you have to be more tech savvy. You have to be able to use the instruments better. You have to understand the limitations and the advantages of all the equipment that you're given. We did not have that kind of technology before. So now you have more of a role for ladies coming out at sea, women, like before. In the earlier ships, you would not be able to manage with a full girl crew, so to say. Today, there are ships with 100% women complement, and they're running. So, the nature of the job changes and we evolve along with it.
I agree.
Yes, eventually, we are going to have autonomous ships, but there's going to be people looking after them. You still require people to get on board and tie up the ships when it comes ashore. You still require people to bring them into the dock and stuff like that. All right, so there will be specialized crews for all these ships.
What I find really interesting though is that there's lots of conversation around self navigation or AI driven navigation, self driving ships, etc. Concept of some seafarers maybe being in a bridge somewhere on or ashore, controlling everything from a room,
Yes,
which sounds really cool. A lot of this I think was inspired probably by the Tesla from Elon Musk, and everybody got excited about that. Now we can apply it to everything, but I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. There's lots of talk around self navigation because that's sexy, but what
yes.
about what about AI driven safety? Because if you have a fire that takes place on board and you've got like less crew or whatever, no crew perhaps, what's going to happen then? The insurance claims are going to go through the roof.
No, then you're going to have auto extinguishing systems.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, why not? We still have them.
How does that take
Okay,
me through?
okay. You check into
Yeah,
a hotel, you see sprinklers out there. It's
we're
the
talking.
simplest form of an auto extinguishing system, right?
Yeah, but what about a container ship though? What about a container ship with, you know, millions of dollars worth of cargo?
Yeah, there are these challenges are going to keep coming up. That we are not going to get rid of crew in a hurry. Okay, it eventually when everything will have to come up, you will have to have better safety standards for something. You will have to have redundancy for all the equipment. You
Yeah,
will have redundancy for the sensors because that is where the critical spot is. The self-driving cars and all that kind of stuff, they're not going on long routes without any overhaul, right?
yeah,
And if you have a sensor malfunction, you have a backup sensor. Now, here on board ship, you have as many backup sensors as you want. They are all exposed to the same environment. And who's to say they're not going to all fail within days of each other? Because they have
exactly.
been exposed to the same environment all the time. And then what do you do?
Yeah,
The sensors right now are the weakest link in the whole chain. Okay, because you have redundancy for all the machinery. It's the sensors that cause the problems.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, I think it's going to be really interesting to see the direction that technology pushes shipping towards in the next maybe 10 to 15 years. I think it's going to be really exciting, quite spooky, but actually really cool at the same time. But I really like the fact that you said that firstly, seafarers aren't going anywhere. And
Yeah.
even when this does happen, all it's going to do is open new opportunities for
We're
seafarers.
not going to go anywhere in a hurry, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are faced by young seafarers today? And how do you see the role of things like mentorship in shaping the future generation of seafarers?
Okay. I'll say the job has evolved, as I just said. Okay. It was from a personality and a testosterone testosterone driven atmosphere now to it's a more tech savvy and a more technology driven atmosphere. Okay, so let me put it this way: when I came out to sea, there were no rest hours, there were no checklists, there was nothing. Okay, so you were forced to think for yourself what are the dangers that you are facing when you're doing a job. You do your own risk assessment and you do your own contingency planning. For example, if I had to enter a tank, I would go down to the engine room myself and lock out the valves to the tank. I would carry the bolts of the tank, the nuts of the tank with me inside and leave my watch outside the tank so that anybody passing by would know who's inside.
Mm.
We had those kind of procedures in place. Okay. Now, what happens is we have checklists for everything. Also, our younger generation, they feel very happy about somebody sitting in an office far away doing the thinking for them. They will follow a checklist and assume that they are safe. So, what I do try to encourage the young guys doing is to carry out your risk assessment and check the stuff out and then refer to the checklist to see if you've missed anything. Other than you start with a checklist and tick items off, you should first use your brain, use your own senses, figure out, ensure your safety, and then go back to the checklist to see if you've missed anything. And this is again a matter of training, a matter of awareness, and stuff like that. This is something that we as senior seafarers need to do for the younger generation. Okay, because I mean, you actually cannot let somebody who's sitting 1,000 miles away do your thinking for you. This is the biggest problem I think we're facing right now.
Totally agree. That is a really, really interesting insight there. I've never really heard someone discuss that before, but the next generation, they follow in autopilot safety checks through checklists without actually taking the initiative to check for themselves.
Without
Um,
the initiative to think beyond the checklist.
yeah, interesting.
If it is not on the checklist, it doesn't matter. That is the most dangerous thought.
Interesting. Yeah, that's made me think actually, because actually you're right. I think that that's a generational problem. I would say actually is that we like to be able to just be in autopilot.
Yeah.
It goes back to what I said. It's just give us the biggest reward for the least amount of responsibility. What do you think? What do you think separates a so that's one example. But what do you think separates a really good seafarer? Like, can you spot someone who has the potential to become a captain from a long way away?
Now, this does not apply only to seafarers, it applies to pretty much any field, any discipline whatsoever, be it engineer or executive or manager or whatever. Okay. Uh, a good officer is an officer who does everything that is required to do. An outstanding officer is always on the lookout for how I can make this operation safer, easier, less expensive, more expeditious, or generally better. So the thought process, you come out with ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. But the very fact that you're thinking all the time on how I can improve on my day-to-day activities, that's what puts you above the rest.
And was that a mindset that you always had, or was that something that you adopted later on?
No, I think I had that pretty early in life. Something in whatever I do, how do I make this easier or better or more beautiful?
Interesting. And I think that's really, like you said, regardless of the occupation, that's what separates people apart, right?
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit more about what a typical day in the life looks like as for you as a captain. What does it look like, right? What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? How many times you spend on watch? How do you check on the? Are you the type of captain that expects the crew to come to the bridge and speak to, or are you going down to the deck and you're making sure everyone's okay? Like, what's your leadership style, and what's a typical day in Captain Sam on board?
Okay. It's very, very different whether I'm in port or I'm at sea. Okay, so at
Okay.
sea, a typical day would be like I wake up 6:30 odd in the morning. I go up to the bridge, have my coffee with the chief mate, discuss what work we're going to do and all that kind of stuff. The bosun comes up around 7ish or something of that sort to speak the chief mate while I'm having my coffee there and all. So we have our work planned out for the day, week, or whatever. I These days I've started skipping breakfast because weight control, and my 10 o'clock coffee I always have in the engine room. Okay, so I sit in the engine control room with all the engineers and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes the chief mate also joins me there, and we shoot the shit over coffee. So basically, rather than having structured management meetings and stuff like that, I like to have informal sit downs.
Nice.
Okay, and I morning before that I check my emails and stuff like that, do my admin. After that, I would go take a round on deck or something of that sort. The afternoon coffee, 3 o'clock, is always in the crew's mess room. Okay, and evening before dinner, if I find time, I work out for an hour or so. And after dinner, it's like movie time. So I actually encourage people to sit together and watch all the new movies or series or whatever coming in after dinner. And there's no officers or crew. We all sit together, and I make the popcorn. So that is
Wow.
one thing which I like to do is, and it's like under threat of what you call piss in the master off that. Don't you dare see a new movie by yourself. You gotta watch it with everybody else, kind of thingy. And yeah, the idea is because this is one of the, what should I say, bad aspects of technology, that since internet has come on board ship, you find a lot of people, they finish their job and they lock themselves up in their cabin with their phone or their laptop or whatever. So that is something which I want to prevent. You should have your own time, but you should sit with others too, at least for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day or something of that sort. You need to make friends out at sea. That human contact is very, very important outside of personal space. Okay, and that's one thing. Now, if I'm calling port, let's say I'm going into Bremen for an open pile discharge, and I have pilot at 8 in the morning. I have my tide at Bremen is at 8 in the morning, so I'll pick up pilot at midnight. Okay, so about 10 o'clock in the evening, I'm there on the bridge, settling down on all that kind of stuff. Pilot comes on board. The ship does that 8 hours of river transit. We berth at Bremen. Now you got 11 hours at the dock. So 7 in the evening you're going to sail. 7 in the evening you sail, and then you got 8 hours out again. Okay, and while you're there on the dock, you may have surveys, provisions, stores, repairs, and stuff knows what. Okay, so it does get hectic at times. And then since this ship will berth at Bremen only at the top of high water, and if I'm doing a constant Rotterdam Bremen, then my sleep time changes with the time of tide at Bremen. I do not have any regular working hours, so to say. But what I do like to keep, I like to keep an open hierarchy, in the sense, I like to keep a hierarchy free system. Okay. If the second engineer requires any assistance from the deck crew or something, he need not wait for the chief officer. He'll talk to the bosun himself. Or maybe the fitter talks to the bosun that I need this done, and between the two of them, they'll plan the job out. Bosun has a problem with one of the deck machineries. The chief officer is resting after port. He goes directly to the second engineer. Like, can you help pick this out and stuff like that? My cabin's always open. I mean, anybody can walk in anytime and stuff like that. I actually like walk around. I have a very, very cordial relationship with the crew, and it's like I do not address anybody by rank. My first question to anybody joining the ship for the first time is, what does your mother call you? I won't even use their first name. I will use their nickname, so to say. Okay, and I encourage other people to do the same. So I like to cut out hierarchy and have a more open kind of a relationship, because I believe that as long as, if the junior most member of my team can freely speak his mind, then there's nothing hidden from me, from anybody on the ship. Okay, and it just makes the process a whole lot smoother. Nobody's scared of coming out with ideas or improvements or anything of that sort. and they get the credit for it.
I love that. I love that. I love that you really promote the idea of being an accessible captain at all times.
Well, on the
And
first ship of mine, throughout my entire tenure, the captain never spoke a single word to me.
wow.
Actually,
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It used to be like captains, captain, and cadets, cadet. It used to be very, very different in the old days, Carl.
Is it an
It was a very strict hierarchy at that time. The captain had to say something to me, he would tell an officer, tell this guy to do this. Though I'm standing right in front, like a proper chain of command and stuff like that. So that's
yeah.
something which actually pissed me off, and that I vowed I would break that chain.
Yeah, and I think that's so important actually because if you want a crew to really believe in you and give you everything, they have to feel like they know you and care for you, right?
Not
That's
just
that's
that, Carl, they would have to believe that I would do the same for them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Interesting. Okay, so I think we've covered some really interesting subjects so far, but I really wanted to ask you one last question, really, and that was, looking ahead, what changes would you like to see in the maritime industry? Everything from technology, seafarer welfare, but overall, just to make life at sea better for future generations. What changes would you like to see, Captain Sam?
Okay. See, this is a tough one, okay, because we can't really predict the way things go. But yes, we would like to see better understanding of the technology or integration of the technology with the human factor. Because what's happening is sometimes the technology is alienating the human factor. Because you get more technical, you get less human. Now you need to find a way to integrate the two so that the technology is more humanity driven. Okay, I don't know how to put this better, but you do you need the essence of belonging to be incorporated into the technology somehow. Okay, because right now technology is actually I mean, it's making things easier, no doubt, but it's actually taking away the soft skills which I think is essential for us to remain human. We need those soft skills to continue. And yes, technology is good. I hate it when machinery becomes smarter than I am. Okay, so we need to keep training ourselves to be able to better understand the technology. So that level of training has to keep evolving in the same way. And well, I'll say the rest I'd leave to others. I think they're taking good. We are following the aviation industry in any which case. So
Yeah,
whatever comes in there, eventually we can come around to it. And I think they're doing a pretty good job. I've not seen any unhappy pilots so far. Very
I
few.
agree. Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely some common similarities between the aviation industry and the maritime industry, but it does appear that sometimes the maritime industry can be slightly slower to adapt to new innovations. I mean, even
We
social
don't
media
really
is
have to wait for legislations to come in. We can actually see what's going on there and emulate it. That's it.
yeah, yeah. I think that for me, one of the things I'm very passionate about, and one of the things I'm trying to speak to maritime businesses around is social media, and I think social media is a really really interesting tool because there's two sides to the coin. One side is definitely negative, and I think a lot of focus and attention is typically on that side of the coin. People look at social media and they immediately think of all the negatives attached to it. But I also, my thing at Seafarer Social is I try and promote the benefits of social media. And I think you're somebody that has definitely shown that social media can be used in a beneficial way. Um, so just to wrap up, what do you think the industry so if I'm a ship operator, how can we benefit from allowing the crew to use social media more to promote their lifestyle aboard ship? How do you think this could benefit the industry?
It's already brought a lot more visibility to the industry. As I said, there are a lot of guys which are coming in from North India, which is like very, very far away from the sea. So it's the awareness through social media that these guys have come to know about it. Okay. Also, with the outreach of the internet into the tier 2, tier 3 cities, we are having a lot of boys and girls from there coming out. So it's already done that kind of a job. Now, when I started building up follows and stuff like that, I actually got a call from my social media cell from my company in Hamburg, and they coined the term seafluencer.
Nice.
Okay, and that's what they. I found the term nice, but they're very happy about bringing visibility to the company. All right. Also, social media, I think, is helping a lot of stranded seafarers worldwide be able to put their voice across about substandard practices and stuff which is going on. So the companies are also more careful about. You cannot deny anybody internet access in today's date. It's become almost a basic human right. And the companies have also become more responsible because everybody's got access to everybody else. So in a way, that has developed more controls over the kind of practices that you follow on board. So that way, it has helped. Where it has not helped is, for example, Facebook and Instagram. They're usually entertainment platforms. They're not education platforms. You want to learn something about it, you do not learn from WhatsApp or Instagram or something. You go to YouTube or you look up on the net. You go to a proper website. So you should be able to understand or filter out the content that you're using and determine credibility for it from the horse's mouth, so to say. So you should be able to get to the source of the content, and people should realize that because a lot of people are having, I'll say, hoaxes on social media. They're showing a life which is not really true. Okay, and a lot of kids get brainwashed into thinking that this is a cushy life and gonna have fun and all that kind of stuff. These kids do actually end up at sea, and then they say, "I don't like the way my senior talks to me." Well, suck it up. Learn how to handle him.
I agree. No, that's definitely true. You're right. Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah,
Facebook, these kinds of platforms. I think that there are some people out there that do, like you, for example. I think there are some people out there that do use these platforms to offer some level of education, even if it's masked like you do within humor or something slightly different. There's still something you can walk away and learn and think about. Create the
that's what
consumer
I'm
to think.
encouraging people to do. That is what I would like to do. Encourage people to think. Is actually my ultimate game.
And I think that's very powerful because these platforms typically you're not thinking, you're just in autopilot mode, like your brain's just frying. So if you can stumble across a video while you're scrolling through reels that actually makes you stop, makes you think, makes you consider something, makes you learn something, perhaps. I think that's very powerful. But you are right that both those platforms are masked by content which is just built primarily to keep you on
Yes,
brain zapped so they can wash you with advertisements. But yeah, I think that you lead from the front, Captain Sam, and your engagement and audience shows that. I've not seen somebody in the seafaring influencing space grow an audience as quick as you
it's
without
it's
yeah.
you and the younger guys around me that keep me young, and I get to learn so much from all these guys every day. That's like incredible.
Yeah, and I really like as well. Another thing I say is I really like your engagement. I notice that you are continuously engaging with other seafarers all the time. I see Captain Sam likes this. Captain Sam commented on this, like, and you're doing it with all of these guys and girls from around the world. I think it's really impressive.
And I also DM them when there's a problem with one of their videos and stuff like that.
So, do you think it's likely you're going to end up eventually hiring a videographer to follow you around, like one of these
No,
production
no,
guys?
I am not gonna do that.
Yeah, sure.
Again, that's not me.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
like that.
I will learn basic editing and stuff like that. I'll try to make better content, but I'm going to do it by myself. I'm not going to have somebody else follow me around and stuff. No, that's not me. I don't want to. Okay, this is one thing which I do not want to do, Carl, is give a wrong impression of who I am. Because believe it or not, these videos are as much for myself as for everybody else. So it's a way of constantly reminding me of what I need to be doing.
Nice. So self accountability while also inspiring your audience. I think that's really impressive. This is actually my final question now. I've said that twice. Do you have, as you are somebody who is active online and you're engaging with social media, do you think that there are any other social media seafluencers that you would like to raise some attention around? Perhaps those that some that maybe aren't as well known, that are up and coming, or some that are known. Who do you think are the most inspiring ones out there that are doing really great work?
Ranveer is doing really, really good. Okay, he's doing some very nice work. Uh, Merchant Navy Decoded is giving extremely accurate and useful information, particularly for freshers who would want to join. For people who are going to build up their Instagram profile and stuff like that, there's Captain Ravi Chaudhary, who I think never refuses a collab. Okay, he
He's very
collabs.
active.
He collabs with just about everybody, and he's like promoting a lot of this thing. I think he vets the content before he collabs, so he does not collab on crap. Okay, but if you have a decent video and you want better reach and stuff like that, Captain Ravi Chaudhary is the guy for you, and he's doing it for this thing. Uh, Captain Kate McHugh's come out with beautiful videos. Okay, I love watching her. She's a celebrity beyond captain, cruise ship captain, but she comes out with very, very interesting and informative videos. Very good ones. Okay, and the lens we've already talked about. That's Karanveer, and there's Captain Rahul Chadda, Mariner biker. He was very popular, but most of his earlier videos they used to be just transitions and good shots and stuff like that. But then off late, he started making some very good content, and yeah, that's about it. I don't find many others coming into mind.
Yeah, I think that's a solid group.
Yeah,
Um, And I also think Captain Kate, you're right, she's the pinnacle, really, isn't she? I'd say biggest seafluencer in the world, and fantastic at what she does. Thank you so much, Captain Sam, for your time today. It's been an absolute honor to have this conversation with you. I hope that we can do some really fun projects in the future. And I really enjoy watching your growth online. I think it's really, really inspiring how you develop authentic content that resonates with your seafarer audience. Yes, this is a huge honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you. And thank you so much for taking the time.
honors entirely mine. Thanks so much, Carl, and stay safe.
Thank you, sir.